You know that feeling, that one where your head hits the pillow, you're totally wiped out, physically at least, but your brain just decides now is the perfect time to, I don't know, replay every awkward thing you've ever said.
Or list everything you have to do tomorrow. Yeah.
Exactly. And the more you sort of tell yourself, go to sleep,
Hmm.
the more it just slips away.
Uh-huh. It's incredibly common. And actually, the source material you shared for this deep dive, this book, it opens with a story just like that. Someone who, well, they used to sleep like a log, head down, boom, asleep.
Right. Like when we were younger, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. But then hitting their late 40s, maybe some extra stress, like dealing with major house renovations, suddenly they're facing those awful nights, just wide awake. And they really pinpoint the thinking, that busy mind, as the thing keeping them awake.
And that resonates, doesn't it? Because sleep problems, they're not just some rare thing. The
Yeah.
book makes a point of showing how widespread this is. It mentions stats like 1 in 3 people in the UK having sleep issues.
Yeah, and in the U.S., the estimates are, well, pretty staggering, too. Maybe 30 million people. That's like more than 1 in 10 adults dealing with chronic insomnia.
Wow, that's huge.
It's a really significant public health issue. Really impacts people's lives.
Okay, so our mission here in this deep dive is to really pull out the key insights from this book. It's a source that digs into how mindfulness can offer, a totally different way to handle sleep problems.
Mm-hmm.
We want to understand why sleep is so vital, figure out what main things get in the way, and crucially, get how mindfulness practice helps by changing our whole relationship with being sleepless, rather than just, trying to wrestle it into submission.
Yeah, moving beyond just trying to force sleep. Consider this your shortcut to getting up to speed on this whole approach.
And for you, the listener, maybe you gave us this source because you're wrestling with sleep yourself, or maybe you're just curious about mindfulness and sleep. We're here to sort of walk through it together.
Let's dive in.
All right. So the book kicks off by making this really strong case for sleep. It puts it right up there like a foundational pillar alongside diet and exercise. It's not just empty time. It's vital.
Absolutely. The source really underlines that. There's crucial physiological stuff happening when we're asleep. Really important work.
Okay, so what kind of work are we talking about? What's going on?
Well, basically, our sleep tends to happen in cycles,
Right.
roughly 90 minutes long, and we move through different stages. REM sleep, that's rapid eye movement, and non-REM sleep.
Okay.
And one really key phase is deep sleep. Technically, it's called N3 sleep. It's
Yeah.
incredibly restorative. But the amount we get tends to naturally decrease as we get older.
Right.
And during sleep, our immune system gets a boost, muscles get repaired, and critically, we consolidate memories and learning. It's like filing away the day's experiences.
That memory bit makes total sense. If I have a bad night, my brain just feels like fog the next day.
Yeah, definitely. Sleep also plays a huge role in regulating hormones, things like growth hormone, but also the ones that control our appetite, leptin, which tells us we're full, and ghrelin, which makes us feel hungry.
Ah, okay.
And it's absolutely critical for managing our mood and our emotions, too.
So if sleep's doing all that, heavy lifting, what's the actual cost when we don't get enough? This is where the source gets quite impactful, detailing all the negative knock-on effects.
It really does. It highlights major impacts, both mentally and physically. Emotionally, for instance, not getting enough sleep makes us more irritable, more reactive. Our overall mood tends to take a dive. We might become less empathetic, maybe a bit more self-absorbed even.
Yeah, I can definitely see that in myself sometimes after a bad night.
And cognitively, it's a big hit.
Yeah.
It really hinders learning and memory consolidation. The source explains how it messes with our emotional processing, too. Specifically, it weakens the connection between the prefrontal cortex, that's the logical decision-making part of the brain.
The sensible bit.
Exactly. And the amygdala, which is kind of the brain's alarm system for stress and fear. So, without enough sleep, that rational control gets weaker.
And I found this fascinating. It seems like bad memories hang around more than good ones when you're sleep deprived.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point the source brings up. It seems positive, and even neutral memories are more likely to be lost when we're sleep deprived, leaving behind a kind of stronger residue of the negative ones.
Wow.
Which, just feeds into our natural tendency to focus on the bad stuff, the negativity bias. Mindfulness practices actually can help counteract that bias by training us to notice the good things too.
That study about the marketing game really stuck with me as an example of the cognitive hit.
Oh yeah, the Harrison and Horn study. That was back in '99. They had participants play this quite realistic game, needed flexible thinking, good strategy.
Right.
And after being kept awake for 32 to 36 hours, Their thinking became really rigid. They just stuck to strategies that weren't working, couldn't adapt, couldn't find creative solutions.
And they ended up financially insolvent in the game.
Exactly. It's a stark contrast to the well-rested group.
Hmm.
Of course, it's just one study, but it's a powerful illustration, isn't it, of how much clear thinking relies on decent sleep.
Definitely. Bankrupt by bedtime blues. So beyond mood and thinking, there are physical risks too.
For sure. The source links poor sleep physiologically to things like an increased risk of obesity, partly because of those appetite hormone imbalances we mentioned.
Right.
Also, a potential for diabetes because it impairs how we handle glucose. And just generally, our body systems just don't work optimally. Stimulants can't really compensate for that lack of proper rest.
Okay, so sleep is crucial. Missing out is bad news. What does the source say are the main things stopping us from getting it? What are the big obstacles?
Well, the book goes through several common factors. Some we can influence, some not so much.
Like age, for example. That's pretty much out of our hands.
True. As we get older, yeah, total sleep time often decreases, and that deep sleep stage shrinks a bit. We tend to wake up more during the night, find it harder to drop back off.
Hmm.
Now, some of that might be linked to lifestyle changes or underlying health stuff that comes with age, but the pattern often shifts.
Mm.
Like younger people might struggle more with falling asleep initially, whereas older adults might wake up too early or find it hard to stay asleep.
Okay.
And the source also mentions specific things like menopause symptoms, night sweats being a real disruptor for women.
And then there's that whole tangle of lifestyle, stress, and health conditions.
Yeah, that connection is really strong according to the source. Insomnia very often goes hand in hand with stress, anxiety, depression, chronic pain.
It's like a feedback loop sometimes.
Exactly. The book really emphasizes they aren't separate issues, they're often intertwined, which suggests that approaches like mindfulness, which tackle the sort of psychological distress part, can be really helpful.
The book also touched on the cost of insomnia, like to society.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Citing, billions lost in productivity, money spent on sleep aids and things. The point being made is that many people could improve their sleep quite a bit by focusing on practical habit changes first, rather than just reaching for aids. Even losing just 1 hour consistently impacts attention, reaction time, mood.
Makes you feel sluggish the next day.
Definitely. And then, of course, there are substances. Alcohol and caffeine get a big mention.
Right. Alcohol might make you feel sleepy at first.
Exactly. It's a sedative initially. But the source explains that as your body metabolizes it later in the night, it actually disrupts the sleep cycle, leads to more fragmented sleep, waking up more often. Plus, it's a diuretic.
Needing more bathroom trips.
Yep. And it can make things like snoring or sleep apnea worse, too.
And caffeine. Its effects last way longer than most of us think, right?
Oh, this is a huge point in the book. Caffeine can stay active in your system for up to 12 hours.
12 hours. Wow.
Yeah. So that late afternoon coffee or even tea can genuinely interfere with your body's natural wind-down process later on. And it's not just coffee and tea, is it? It's in chocolates, lots of sodas, energy drinks, which is a worry, especially for kids and teens.
Hmm.
The author actually shares a personal story about this, how they used to be fine with coffee after dinner, but as they got older, they had to cut it off by late afternoon, or it really impacted their sleep.
That's a great practical takeaway for you, the listener, isn't it? The source suggests trying a little sleep diary. It's just noticing how your evening drinks affect your sleep.
It's all about building that personal awareness.
Hmm.
And yeah, these effects can change over time, so checking in now and then is useful. Nicotine, other stimulants, they also disrupt sleep, of course.
And then the big one for modern life, perhaps, technology. The book calls it the tyranny of technology.
Huh. A very good description, I think. Just having devices in the bedroom, it signals activity, not rest.
Mhm.
And fundamentally, that blue light screens emit, it actively suppresses melatonin production.
Melatonin, the sleep hormone.
Exactly, the hormone that helps signal sleepiness. The book points out that even those night mode filters, they don't completely eliminate the effect.
And it's not just the light, is it? It's the checking notifications, the scrolling. It keeps your brain buzzing.
Precisely. It keeps us in a state of kind of hyperarousal, and it blurs those boundaries between work and downtime, especially if you work from home.
Hmm.
Makes it much harder to switch off, stop ruminating about work tasks or emails.
Right.
And think about those brief moments we all naturally wake up during the night. If the first instinct is to reach for the phone, boom, you're wide awake, maybe triggered into that anxious cycle that often comes with insomnia.
And this is hitting kids hard, too, the source suggests.
Yes, definitely. It notes really high rates of phone ownership among young people and a concerning rise in childhood sleep problems.
Hmm.
Mentions hospital visits in the UK tripling over a decade for sleep-related issues in kids.
Wow. And parents. We're role models here, aren't we?
Absolutely. The book suggests maybe using that diary idea to become aware of the whole family's tech habits. Maybe even try a family experiment, like no screens for an hour before bed for everyone.
Mhm.
It's about making conscious choices based on awareness.
Okay. So we've got why sleep matters and a whole load of things working against it. Now, for the core idea in this book, mindfulness as a different way forward. How does the source basically define a mindfulness?
Well, the core definition it offers is about paying attention to your experience. That means your thoughts, your emotions, what you feel in your body, your surroundings, what you're doing,
Hmm.
paying attention as it's happening right now.
Okay.
And crucially, doing it without judging it. The book really stresses bringing attitudes like kindness and gentleness to whatever you notice, whatever comes up.
So it's not about like emptying your mind or stopping thoughts. That's a common misunderstanding, right?
Totally. The source is really clear on that. Your mind will wander, especially when you try to meditate. That's just what minds do. The key moment, the book says, is when you notice your mind has wandered. That noticing is a moment of pure awareness.
Ah, okay.
So the practice isn't about getting rid of thoughts. It's about repeatedly noticing where your attention has gone and then gently, kindly guiding it back to whatever you chose to focus on, maybe your breath or sensations in your body.
Mm.
And doing that over and over, the book explains, actually builds new pathways in the brain. It literally, structurally changes our brain over time.
And mindfulness seems to offer a way to deal with that stress we get from feeling like we have to be in control, especially when sleep just won't come.
That's a really critical insight from the source, yeah. So much of the suffering around sleeplessness comes from that struggle, that fight to make sleep happen, or to control the uncomfortable feeling of being awake when you don't want to be.
Right.
Mindfulness helps us take a step back. We start to notice, okay, I can't actually control every single thought or feeling that pops up. But what we can do is cultivate awareness and choose how we relate to that experience, how we respond.
The book talks about formal versus informal practice. What's the difference there?
Yeah, so formal practice is when you set aside specific time for meditation, sitting, body scan, that kind of thing. Informal practice is about bringing that same quality of mindful awareness into everyday life.
Like mindful eating.
Exactly, or mindful walking. Really paying attention to the sensations, the sounds, the movement while you're doing ordinary things. The book puts it nicely, knowing what you're doing while you're doing it. Both types of practice help build that muscle of awareness.
And it sounds like the source is pretty realistic. This isn't an overnight fix.
Definitely not. The book makes it clear it's a practice, it takes time. Changing deeply ingrained habits, changing how we relate to really frustrating experiences like not sleeping, that needs regular sustained effort. It's not a magic wand.
That point from Dr. Jason Ong about insomnia being a 24-hour condition feels really relevant here.
It really is. He's a key researcher in this area, developed mindfulness-based therapy for insomnia, MBTI, which the book mentions. His point is, look, the effects of insomnia and the things that trigger it, they don't just happen at night. They affect your whole day.
Right.
So the approach to managing it also needs to be round the clock, basically. Cultivating mindfulness during the day builds up that resilience, that awareness that helps you navigate the challenges when they pop up at night.
So specifically linking mindfulness and sleep then, what does the research mentioned in the source actually show? Does it help you sleep more?
Well, the book notes the research is still relatively young, but what studies consistently show is improvement in subjective sleep quality. And this brings up a really vital distinction the source highlights.
Ah, the difference between objective and subjective sleep quality. Can you unpack that?
Sure. So objective sleep quality is what you'd measure in a sleep lab. Total sleep time, how fast you fall asleep, sleep efficiency, how much time you spend in different stages like deep sleep or REM. It's the hard data.
Okay.
Subjective sleep quality is your experience, how well you feel you slept, how rested you feel when you wake up, how easily you think you fell asleep. And the book points out, two people could have almost identical objective sleep measurements.
But feel totally different about their night's sleep.
Exactly. One might feel awful, the other might feel fine. Our perception, our feeling about it matters hugely.
And mindfulness seems to target that subjective feeling more, even if the objective numbers don't shift much at first.
That seems to be a key finding, yes. Participants in studies often report feeling like they sleep better, feeling less distressed by being awake, feeling more able to cope with the insomnia when it hits. It's really about shifting your internal relationship to the sleeplessness.
Which comes back to that core idea, that paradox.
Yeah.
You're not actually trying harder to fall asleep.
Precisely.
Yeah.
That's the counterintuitive power here, according to the source. Mindfulness helps you learn to relate differently to the suffering aspect of being awake. By letting go of that desperate struggle, that need to force sleep, by practicing accepting, okay, right now, I'm awake.
You take the pressure off.
You take the pressure off, you reduce the mental agitation, the frustration that often keeps you awake, and paradoxically, that creates the conditions where sleep might actually arise more easily. And even if you don't end up sleeping significantly more hours, letting go of that intense mental battle can leave you feeling much less drained and depleted.
That makes so much sense. Honestly, the internal fight is often the most exhausting part.
And that fight often fuels rumination, doesn't it? Getting stuck, replaying the day, worrying about tomorrow, catastrophizing about being tired. That whole thinking loop is a massive barrier to sleep. Mindfulness helps break that cycle. It trains you to see thoughts for what they are, just mental events, like clouds passing, not absolute facts you have to get tangled up in. You learn to gently redirect your attention away from those swirling thoughts, maybe back to the simple physical sensation of your breath or your body resting.
And cultivating those helpful attitudes you mentioned earlier, like acceptance, non-striving, that directly feeds into this shift.
Absolutely. They're foundational. Non-striving means letting go of the forceful goal. I must sleep now. Acceptance means being open to the reality of the present moment. Okay, I'm awake, without resisting it so fiercely.
Curiosity, too.
Yeah, curiosity encourages you to explore the experience of being awake with a kind of gentle interest, rather than just reacting with panic or frustration. Patience acknowledges, look, this takes time. And kindness is so important, not beating yourself up for struggling. These attitudes really cultivate that fundamental change in relationship to the whole situation.
Okay, this is really starting to paint a clearer picture. So for someone listening wanting to try applying these ideas, what practical steps or practices does the source suggest?
Well, it starts with a really fundamental suggestion.
Mm.
Truly prioritize sleep. Make it as important in your life as you make diet and exercise.
Okay, treat it seriously.
Exactly. And then revisit good sleep hygiene practices, but maybe view them through this new mindful lens.
So not just a checklist, but conscious choices.
Precisely. The book reinforces the key things. A sleep environment that's cool around 17 degrees Celsius or 63 Fahrenheit is often recommended dark, and definitely technology-free.
Right.
Keeping a regular sleep schedule is important. But critically, going to bed when you actually feel sleepy, not just because the clock hits a certain time.
That's a subtle but important difference.
It really is. Avoiding stimulants in the evening is key, of course, and that sleep diary helps build the awareness of what affects you.
We talked about caffeine and alcohol.
Yes, using the diary to really notice their impact. And following that classic sleep hygiene advice. Avoid trying hard to sleep. If you're lying there awake for a while, getting frustrated,
Get up.
get up. Go somewhere else. Do something quiet, calm, non-stimulating until you feel sleepy again, then go back to bed. Staying in bed, tossing and turning just reinforces the bed frustration link. The source even suggests a practice called What Nourishes You to help you identify calming activities you could do in those moments.
And cutting down screen time before bed, that links back to the tech tyranny.
Absolutely. Aiming for maybe an hour device-free before sleep is a good goal. And again, using some kind of record keeping, like the diary, to become aware of your habits helps you make intentional choices about when and how you use screens. Maybe even, as the book suggests, trying it as a family experiment.
Okay, what about specific mindfulness practices you can actually do when you're lying awake at night?
Right. The book offers several. And the really important framing here is that you're not doing them in order to fall asleep. That would be striving again.
Okay, so what is the goal then?
The goal is simply to be present with the experience of being awake, calmly. So simple anchors, like gently paying attention to your breath, noticing the rise and fall, or focusing on physical sensations in the body. These help redirect your attention away from those racing thoughts.
Things like the body scan.
Exactly. The body scan involves systematically bringing awareness to different parts of the body, noticing sensations without judgment. There are related practices, too, like outlining the body, just focusing on the physical shape or boundary of your body against the sheets. Or something called just 3 things. Simply noticing 3 sensory inputs right now, like a sound, a feeling of touch, the temperature.
Simple anchors.
Simple anchors. Counting breath is another one, especially if the mind feels really busy. Or focusing on letting go into the out-breath, consciously softening and releasing tension as you breathe out.
And there was one called Awake Just Like Me. That sounded interesting.
Yes, that's a kindness and compassion practice. It involves acknowledging that you're awake and then bringing to mind that you're not alone. There are many other people awake right now across the world, maybe nurses on night shifts, parents with newborns, firefighters, other people with insomnia,
Right.
and you gently send kind wishes to yourself and to them. Again, the intention isn't this will make me sleep. It's about fostering connection, acceptance, and reducing that feeling of isolation.
But the source really hammers home that it's not just about what you do at night, is it?
Absolutely not. That 24-hour condition needs a 24-hour approach. The practices you do during the day are vital for building that muscle of awareness and cultivating those helpful attitudes.
Like the informal practices.
Exactly. Simple things like mindful eating, really tasting your food. Mindful walking, feeling your feet on the ground, noticing your surroundings. Mindful exercise, paying attention to your body sensations, your breath, the environment while you move. It's all about integrating that awareness into daily life, knowing what you're doing while you're doing it.
There was one called Out of the Ordinary.
Yeah, that's about deliberately breaking your autopilot. Maybe taking a different route on your walk, brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand, really listening to a piece of music. Little things to wake up your senses during the day.
And breaking the tyranny of technology, that's a daytime practice too.
Yes, using the diary or just conscious observation to see your patterns with devices during the day and making deliberate choices about usage, not just reacting automatically.
And practicing being with discomfort during the day. That seems like direct training for handling being awake at night.
It really is. Practices mentioned like exploring resistance or exploring the senses, where you intentionally stay present with slightly unpleasant physical sensations, or maybe distracting sounds, without needing to immediately fix or change them that builds capacity.
So you're less likely to freak out at night.
Exactly. You build tolerance for discomfort, for thoughts you don't like. There's also a specific technique mentioned, self-soothing for anxiety, for managing distress more generally.
And identifying your own stress signals.
That's another key awareness practice. Learning to notice your early warning signs of stress. Maybe it's tight shoulders, a clenched jaw, feeling irritable, whatever it is for you. Noticing it early means you can take wise action sooner, maybe do a short breathing practice, go for a walk, before it escalates and potentially impacts your sleep later.
Exercise comes up again too.
Yeah, its importance for overall well-being and stress management is reinforced. With that practical note, again, about timing, probably best not to do intense exercise right before trying to sleep.
And that sleep diary keeps popping up as a core tool.
It really is presented as fundamental, not just for tracking data, but as a tool for cultivating curiosity and awareness about your own unique patterns, what you eat, drink, your tech use, your routine, when you think you slept.
But bringing those mindful attitudes to it.
Crucially, honesty, curiosity, not judgment, patience, and letting go of striving for perfect sleep scores, just observing.
So not getting obsessed with the numbers.
Exactly. The suggestion is maybe keep it diligently for a couple weeks, build up a picture, then maybe step back from constant tracking if that itself becomes a source of anxiety. The book also adds a little caution about consumer sleep trackers. They're not always accurate, and sometimes they can make people more anxious about the numbers rather than tuning into their body's actual signals.
Good point. And finally, the source is clear. If you're really struggling, get professional help.
Absolutely. The first step recommended is always to see your doctor. Rule out any underlying medical conditions that might be affecting your sleep. They can also discuss other options, maybe short-term sleeping tablets, though the book does highlight the potential for addiction and generally advises them only as a very temporary measure, not a long-term fix.
Okay, so let's try and wrap up the core message from this source. Sleep is complex, right? Biology, lifestyle, our mental state all play a part. Practical changes like sleep hygiene, they matter. But mindfulness offers this really powerful shift in perspective. It's about changing our fundamental relationship with sleep problems, moving towards acceptance, reducing the suffering that gets tied up in not sleeping the way we think we should.
Yeah, the goal becomes less about hitting a specific number of hours on the clock and more about cultivating a sense of feeling genuinely more rested, more resilient, better able to cope with your day, whatever the night held.
And the big takeaway seems to be that building this awareness, cultivating these helpful attitudes, non-striving, acceptance, kindness, it's a process. It takes time. It takes consistent practice.
It really does. But the potential payoff is huge. Even small shifts in how you relate to being awake when you don't want to be can dramatically change how sleeplessness actually impacts your well-being and your quality of life.
Which leads us to a final thought for you, the listener, to maybe mull over. Given everything we've discussed from the source, especially that distinction between objective clock time sleep and subjective felt sense sleep, and the research suggesting mindfulness really boosts that felt sense, that coping ability, could it be that the most impactful goal isn't necessarily chasing that elusive, perfect, uninterrupted 8 hours every single night? But perhaps instead focusing on cultivating a level of inner calm, acceptance, and maybe even curious presence that makes the experience of being awake at night less distressing, less debilitating.
Yeah, could feeling truly more rested actually come less from the quantity of sleep and more from fundamentally changing your experience of the sleeplessness itself? Is that transformation perhaps more achievable and ultimately more beneficial than simply trying to force a particular biological outcome?
Something to explore perhaps in your own experience.